Okay. There's our gavel. Calling to order and announcing that the meeting of the February 23, 2026 special meeting of the Library Commission was in session 6:31. It's a hybrid meeting with commissioners, city staff, and members of the public participating in person at the Arriaga Family Rec Center in accordance with public health guidelines for in-person meetings and the public participating remotely. For roll call, the commissioners present include Leith Abdullah, Kim Crockett, me, Carol Orton, Chair, Sarah Sisbot, Brian Westcott, who's the Vice Chair, and Daniel Yule. Scott Schaefer is not here tonight. And staff present include Assistant Library and Community Services Director Nick Shegda. Nick will be helping facilitate the meeting. Nick, will you please take a moment and provide instructions to the commission and members of the public in attendance on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair. For members of the public who are attending this meeting virtually and wish to provide public comment after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please use that raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or from a phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Members of the public attending remotely who wish to speak, please take a moment to make sure your first and last name are updated on the Zoom, or you may provide your name and spelling as you are called to speak. You don't have to provide your name, but it is greatly appreciated. Public comments will be heard in the order received and are limited to 3 minutes in length. For people attending in person, there are speaker cards here available on the end of the table. Please complete one of those and turn it in to me before public comment is called for on the item you speak on. And with that, I will turn the meeting back to the chair.
Thank you. Under regular business, the Library Commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require Library Commission approval. We'll start with item C1, which is approving the minutes from the January 26, 2026 meeting. Nick, do we have any public comment on this item?
Any comment on item C1? Just to note that there are no virtual attendees at this moment. No public comment.
Would any commissioner like to make any comments, or is there any discussion about the minutes from the January 26 meeting? Would a commissioner like to make a motion to approve the minutes? Commissioner Crockett?
Yes.
Move, and a second, Commissioner Yule.
Go ahead and do a roll call vote. The motion on the floor is to approve the minutes from the January 26th, 2026 Library Commission meeting. Commissioner Abdullah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Sisbot, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Westcott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Yule, how do you vote? Yes. And Chair Orton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Schaefer absent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item, C2, is a report out from the ad hoc subcommittee on the Library of the Future. The subcommittee will provide a brief introduction of the item. We'll take public comment, and then we'll begin our discussion. So, you want to do a brief intro?
Yes. So the Library of the Future ad hoc committee met and reevaluated our list or our needs assessment, schedule, and budget. We talked with people from staff on making sure some of these items were included in next year's budget. We did make some changes from last month to include, for instance, full-time equivalents. We upped from 1 to 3 and included both the main library and Bellhaven with the needs assessment. Yeah, and I think next steps we talked about, we'll be talking more about the budget and how these are included, and we just want to keep focus and bring these to people's attention.
I'm gonna stop screen sharing and call for public comment.
Great.
At this time, if you'd like to make a public comment on item C2, the ad hoc subcommittee on the Library of the Future report out, please raise your virtual hand now. Seeing no comment, you can proceed.
Any discussion, any comments from other commissioners?
I mean, I would just add as part of the work that we're really just trying to attach numbers, costs to these needs and do the work necessary to identify exactly, ballpark wise, maybe as best as possible, and talk to as many people as possible to gather that data so that, when the time comes, if we're able to figure out where the funding could come from, within the city or outside of the city, depending upon, what the exact needs are. But just to emphasize that we're really trying to nail down dollars and cents, to each of these needs. And then also, and this is my fault because I didn't, chime in when we were, updating this list for the programs. I think it should also be Bellhaven for each of the ESL Homework Center and Literacy program.
Okay.
As the programs would be certainly for
Yeah.
libraries wide.
Okay,
That's a good catch.
Good catch,
Yes.
thank you, Kim.
we'll update that.
Anybody else? I have a question, but we'll give everybody else a chance. So here's a question for discussion, whether it fits with the ad hoc subcommittee's work, but I see in the various newsletters that I get in the local newspaper that the city council is asking for input from the community on their priority setting workshop and would like people to put their input in by March 4th, because they're meeting later in the month. I think on the 21st.
That's correct.
For priority, and it occurs to me that that it would be appropriate for us to voice our interest, those of us in the commission and anybody else we know who has an interest in the library getting some attention, to ask the city council to add the library to its list of priorities for the coming year. Last year, we made an effort to do this and we got a number of people to put there, but there was such an uproar at the time about the downtown parking lots that we got drowned out. I think in any other year, we would have had enough people replying or, giving input that it would have gotten added. But I do think that, especially if you look at the subcommittee's report that was approved, that we've been just holding for the time being until the time is right for a study session. If they're having a study session about the gatehouse lease, it seems to me that the time is way overdue to be talking about what's the short-term, medium-term, and long-term plan for our community library as they're approving all these new housing developments at SRI and Springline and downtown or whatever. So anyway, I would just see what your reaction is to that, and if perhaps we could all, take our own personal initiative as private citizens to reply to this request for input and to encourage others that we know in each of our communities to do the same.
Can you provide detail on the drowning out? Like how did that actually play out in terms of just like if there were so many responses and that's the drown out?
There was, when I went to that priority setting, and then I think a number of us who were on the commission at the time had put our input in using their form.
Yeah.
And that was at a period of time where you would go to a city council meeting and there were like 20, 30, 50 people there all complaining about the downtown parking lots being converted. There was a lot of hysteria.
Yeah.
I would describe it as, which I think has calmed down, and that's still an issue, but there's a ballot measure, there's maybe litigation, there's things are moving forward, there are concrete proposals that can be looked at that address the question of whether parking places would be replaced and what they would look like, whatever. So that's on a separate track. This is something that I'm just hoping can get added to their list. Maybe they're done with some of the other priorities that they've listed in the past. When you click on the form, it lists what the priorities have been for the last several years: safe streets and revitalizing downtown. And I mean, I personally think looking at the library and the Civic Center campus is hand in glove with revitalizing downtown. And it should all be looked at together, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I happen to have their presentation from last year. I have the budget has the city council's priorities. So as we're gonna get to this in a little bit here, but there's kind of a lot of pieces to the budget preparation and how the budget is formed. One piece of that is the city council goal setting session, because then they fold that into the budget preparation as it sort of moves along. So coming up on March 21st, there will be another round of council goal setting priorities. It's a Saturday. And I think they've opened the web form. I think I just saw it in the newsletter that went out asking for comments in anticipation of this goal setting. So last year's goals or the priorities that were set last year were climate action, mitigation, adaptation, and resilience, downtown vibrancy, which was new to the priority list, emergency and disaster preparedness, housing, and safe routes. So those, they had 5. And the 4 climate action, emergency and disaster prep, housing, and safe routes were carried over from the previous year, and downtown vibrancy was the.
Is the session where they do their prioritization an open to the public session where we could show up
Absolutely.
and in person say, hey, what about the library?
Yeah.
And would that be, I mean, obviously form is also
Mhm.
something we can do, but
Yes, you,
physical presence is a
Yeah.
lot.
yeah,
So that's the March 21st meeting.
March
We
20th.
could show up then.
and they go through and count how many people have submitted. I mean, we all could, but I remember counting them, and there were maybe 10 to 15 people who said the library, but there were probably 100 that were about the downtown parking lots. Every different interest group does
Right.
this.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the one caveat, is that there's a lot of different needs, a lot of different demands on the city council's time and attention. So I think it's good to let them know, though, as members of the commission, what you're interested in. And if you've been talking to members of the public, what you've heard from them about, here are the results of the survey that was done, where members of the public said this, that, and the other about the library facility. Here's the paper, the research project the library commission did. Went back towards that. I think those are all good pieces of information for the city council to have. Not that
does it-
anyone is talking about pitchforks and things here. I don't think that's appropriate, but
Yeah.
I don't.
No, no, it's all, I mean, it's all
So
just, they have a lot of different
They have a lot of
things to
things, yeah.
balance, and so.
But awareness is good.
And the question I have is, how does this tie in with their capital improvement project analysis? Is this part of that, or is that a separate thing?
That's a separate thing.
Because I think that's probably also an agenda, but to me, this falls in both of those buckets.
It does, right? It's something that it sounds like the commission would like the council to sort of be aware of and think about as they're thinking about downtown vibrancy and long range planning as new housing units are added to the city. But it's also internally, and that's the capital improvement project has big things, very big things, millions and millions of dollars things, and small things like less than $1 million kinds of things. Things that are probably $100,000 or less probably don't end up on the capital improvement project because they're probably not big enough, and they're usually handled by the individual departments or during the budget process.
So these things on our list would probably not be in the capital improvement project,
Some
but
of them might be.
might be more than 100.
Yeah, if you're talking about-
HVAC.
if you're talking about replacing or upgrading the HVAC system, that's pretty pricey, and
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at that
Yeah.
assessment report to see what they had sort
Okay.
of priced it out as. But things like making the library space, the current library space more useful by doing some interior modifications, that could be a few $100,000.
yeah,
say, to like
that's true.
glass off the senior annex and make sure the you know, the HVAC and the entrances are changed and things like that, that could be a couple of $100,000.
When is the capital improvement project analysis done?
I don't know, I can find out. It should be done sort of, these pieces kind of are moving together with the
Yeah,
budget development.
that's what I
It should
thought.
be done, like the other things that sort of feed into, I'm sort of giving spoilers for my info item later. But other things that feed into the budget are the 5-year forecast, the 5-year financial forecast. So if, for instance, there's some sort of big, I'm just making stuff up, but there's some sort of big balloon payment that the city knows is coming in 3 years, then they'll think about that as they sort of plan this year's, next year's budget. And then there's also the mid-year budget where the city, the departments come back to the city council and go, hey, the pool exploded and we needed another $300,000 for the pool, so they make sort of mid-year requests for the budget appropriations. So those are also pieces that kind of fit into this, and I'll talk about that a little later. We do that info item. And certainly when we're talking about the budget, either in March or April, when we're talking about the library and departmental budget, those will be things that we can talk about.
Okay.
I'm so glad you brought up, well, thank you for this, first of all, I think it looks awesome, and I'm so glad you brought up the chance to share input. For the reading, and question, I was just looking at the form, and they have a limit of like 1,000 characters. So I was wondering if, you know, from your subcommittee, are there certain things you would really love us to focus in on? You know, as private citizens, if we happen to give input, you know, it just since there is such a small limit, are there like a top 2 things or 3 things?
And I was gonna say, Nick, if you're gonna include some of these in the budget and you're gonna basically fight for them, we probably shouldn't bring them up in this meeting.
Well, but you could bring up the sort of overall desire to focus on the library and the
Yes.
library of the future. And there are certain short and midterm things that
We need-
determine that you think need to be addressed. And you hope that they're addressed in the city council's priorities and in the budget setting process going forward, So you don't necessarily have to say HVAC, but you could say something like that. That sounds like what I'm hearing you guys talk about. There are things that I ask for in the budget that I get or don't get for various reasons. Most of the things I'm asking for are not, they're called service level enhancements. That's where you're asking for extra staff, say,
Right.
because I want to add a homework help and an ESL program, and I need this many staff to do that. So the things here are not service level enhancements. They're like what the city should be doing all along, is kind of taking care of their facilities, and they have that schedule, that assessment that they did in 2022, where they kind of lay out their schedule. But then
Right.
things move and don't move.
So with the, I'm sorry, but just a question about what you just said. So with these, when it has the staff down here, like the volunteer coordinator and outreach, are those service level enhancements?
Those would be service level.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, you almost could look at the report that we did that's
Right.
attached and look at numbers 3, 4, and 5 in our recommendations. Or 2 through 5, and crib off of that. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're asking, because it's only 1,000 characters and you just wanna summarize what it is that you want the city council to prioritize. You could look at that report and say short, medium, long-term needs and this, you know,
Yeah.
to summarize what those are, because I think that's what we'd like to amplify.
That's so helpful.
As
Yeah.
the, you
And
know,
even
the
looking at the-
library need, you know.
looking at the footnote, there's one, I mean, basically for years now, the library has been assessed by outside groups as being inadequate to serve the needs of the community and is outdated. Both HVAC and others, but So, but anyway, I think those,
And, yeah.
number one, the part where we were suggesting that they evaluate the structure, I don't think is necessarily appropriate in this context, but the 2 through 5, I think are exactly the kinds of things that we're wanting them to look at.
Let me make sure I understand, because we're doing this as citizens, not
Right,
library commission.
right.
So can we talk about the report? For instance, I'd like to bring back somehow, maybe not at that time. But, you know, we should remind them that we have this report, they were gonna do a study session. And with budget cycle coming up, that's not gonna happen until summer. At this point. So I don't know when the appropriate time to bring it.
I don't think this is the context
I don't
to
either.
pursue having a study session. But I do think it could be a place for us, I mean, these arguments that we put in here and these
Yes.
recommendations. Apply both to a future study session and also to like put this on your
Yeah.
priority list.
Right, I
Good.
think the goal is to get it on the city priority list
Right.
during these budget setting
And if
conversations.
we use the report as kind of our central thing, but not bring up the report, just say these are the
Right.
things.
It's just,
And they happen to be, we won't say that, but
well,
they're
we'll
from
be
the
able to use
report.
it.
Yeah.
And it was published publicly.
Right,
So
right.
it's not like, I mean,
Mhm.
anybody could look up.
yeah,
that
we could cite
City
it and
and-
say,
Decided.
Yeah.
those are still
I'm
needs. They
speaking
none
as
of,
a private citizen,
Right.
but I do happen to be a commissioner, so I have this knowledge.
yeah, and we
But
just
I'm not
remind them,
speaking on behalf
Yeah.
of.
none of those recommendations have been addressed and they still are valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, last year, speaking for myself, because I was on the commission last year during this time. I kind of tried to get as many people in Menlo Park as I knew who would possibly be interested. I wrote up kind of my personal letter and said, if you guys agree. And you wanna tweak this or add it on and do, send that. And, I got some people to do that, but that's the type of thing.
I did the same thing, had a personal
Great,
group of people in my neighborhood and elsewhere that I knew in Menlo Park. I said, I'm sending this. This is what I'm saying. You say what you want, or don't say anything.
right, and if you,
But
if
just
you
FYI.
agree and you wanna see more attention and, progress. For our libraries, then, hopefully it's a priority and this is, a way to show that.
Alright, so I will add Bellhaven to that chart before we publish it in the minutes.
Yeah, those,
And then I will find out when the CIP review, maybe I already found out that it's in my report, but I don't remember seeing it in the report that I did for this meeting, so I'll try to find out when that's scheduled to happen.
okay.
Okay, I don't think there's any action we need to take on that, other than the discussion we just had, so thank you. So next we have the report out from the ad hoc subcommittee on the District 1 library outreach. Again, we'll have the subcommittee provide a brief introduction, we'll take public comment, and then we can have a discussion. Anybody on your subcommittee have anything they want to report out to us?
Yeah, I can report very quickly. We don't have a lot to report. We met with Nick, talking about the current outreach projects and the historical outreach that's been done in the Bellhaven community. He provided us with some resources and, we're going to evaluate those and, look at where we can build on top of that. So that's where we're there.
And I can add that one of the questions that the subcommittee had posed was concerning signage, directional signage on Willow Road. So I'm in a conversation with Works and Transportation, who are the two city agencies who deal with public signage. To see if we could get one somewhere on Willow Road, as I think the first pick for the subcommittee, which was on Hamilton and Willow. They're gonna add a bunch of no parking signs there, so they were like, I don't know, so. But it's something that I can talk to the subcommittee about when we next meet to sort of say, well, are there other places where this assignment might be good? Because I think this one they looked at, and I'll share some more information with you guys when we met. I think right now the only library directional sign is a very lonely sign in the median, Ivy Drive in Windermere, which points down Ivy Drive towards the former British Library. I guess it's vaguely pointing in direction of the library, and then if you went all the way back there, and you're just kind of like, what? You'd probably eventually find yourself back to the library, but no, it's not really very helpful at all for people who didn't know where the library was. So more to come.
Okay, and do we need to ask for public comment? If there's any?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, that's just hammered at my own voice there for a moment, I apologize. If anyone would like to make a comment on item C3, the ad hoc subcommittee on District 1 Library Outreach report out, please use that raise hand function now.
All right, so we'll move on to D, informational items. These are informational items are transmitted to the Library Commission and staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. So we'll start with D1, department updates and statistics. Nick, are there any public comments on this item?
Are there any comments on item D1? No comments.
And how about you? Do you have any comments?
Just a few, pointing out a couple of things that recently happened. The library adventure that took place at the end of January was very successful, as usual. About 200 people, many of them costumed. It was a lot of fun. The Black History Month celebrations were also very popular. Both the in-person sort of celebration event at the campus, and then John Weaver, I thought, did a really good job of kind of booking film screenings and a cooking class and a lot of different ways to go at that event, which I think was nice. There was dancing, there was music, there was cooking. There was a children's book author that did a reading at the branch. So just a really good job by the team, I think, in pulling that all together. A couple of things coming up. YA NovCon is a big thing. That's this coming Saturday. It's a countywide celebration of graphic novels for teens and preteens. And that's going to be at the Belmont Library. And then coming up in early March, maybe March 13th, is another bookish trivia event, which will be held at the main library. Because of the popularity of the last bookish trivia event, it is now a registration event, because it got a little out of hand. There were more people than we could comfortably handle. I think there were like 130 people, which made it a little unwieldy for forming up teams and making sure everybody could hear and distributing the clues and things like that. So we're trying to keep it a good experience. I think the limit's 100, which still seems like a lot of people for a trivia night. But that should be successful, hopefully. What else? Tax information. It's always sexy this time of year. We don't have the forms anymore, haven't had them for many years, but we're very happy to help people look up forms, print out forms if they need them. Looking through, the new, the custom library from the cards from the library card contest are available. So if you want to go and pick up your duck with a book on its head, or your dragon, or your stained glass window, or whatever, you can do that now. A lot of people are excited about that. Here on the Burgess campus, there's a lot of construction. You're probably not noticing it so much tonight. But this parking lot is closed here outside the recreation center. They actually have the superstructure for one of the parking, solar carports is up already. But it's gonna be a little choppy for the next month or so while they're figuring that out and putting that in. Department wide, we've started to look ahead to Spring Fest and Egg Hunt is the next big community event that's coming. So get ready for that. That's always a good time. It's a bit chaotic. I'm happy to answer any questions on the combined statistics if anyone has any questions about them. If I don't have the answers, I can go and find the answers. Yes.
Yeah, I had a couple about the numbers. I was doing some light reading, just scanning through. And the first thing I noticed is that the e-audio checkouts have been going up a lot recently. And I was wondering, had any thoughts as to why that might be the case, or if that's something that staff is noticing, promoting them or something like that?
We keep buying more.
Okay.
And we keep, it's interesting because it's sort of waxes and wanes, it seems like a little bit, but you're right. E-audio more than ebooks, more than streaming video is popular. And because we have multiple ways to get you e-audio books, so you can get them through Hoopla, you can get them through Libby, you can get them through Cloud Library, I believe, even. And double check that one, but there's several different ways to get your e-audiobooks, and the Menlo Park Library shares a collection countywide with PLS, but we also buy our own. And you can suggest those through the Cloud Library app. We don't have it, we can buy it for you, so we've sort of dedicated a little more demand budget or budgeting on demand kind of things to the resources, and that's where people are going with it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious about that. I use it, so. My other question was about, I think we may have talked about this before, but the makerspace.
Yeah.
The utilization is 20%. Does that mean that like 80% of the time there is 0 people in the makerspace not doing anything with it?
Yes, unless it's open make, which we've just started programming more. I think there are Saturday programs now where we have staff-led programs. Some of those utilization percentages are a little funky because if the library's open and people want to use the space, they can. We'll let them in to use it as long as it's not being used for something else. I think that percentage of usage is the percent of time that it's booked in our internal system, in our Explore recreation system.
So you can walk in and use that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the space is open for, I know we let the teams go eat their lunch and things like that in there rather than in the teen zone. I know the after school program uses it a lot for homework or craft projects. I know the various senior classes use it a lot, and those aren't always formally booked for the time.
Okay.
It's a great space and a lot of people want to use it. It's a really nice place
That's a
to
great
sort of work and look out over Kelly Park.
Well, this is what I was wondering, is it's a sort of marquee part of the new development, and if it's only seeing 20% utilization, then there's a mismatch there in terms of.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people, it is kind of tucked away a little bit, like if you don't know it's there, you don't know what a great space it is. So hopefully some more of these events and some more open make times will help people get familiar with it, and so the usage will increase.
Yeah, question about the makerspace, just because, I was thinking about like Atherton's, when I go there, people really only use the 3D printers, like when they have volunteers there to help out. I don't know if you are allowed to, or it's just very complicated, but
Yes.
is the 3D printer open?
No, you can't just sort of go and
Okay.
3D print there, mainly because it does take, you need some software and some knowledge of how to use it. Also because if you have someone who's just printing, I don't know, poop emojis and prints 50 of them, they can use like a whole spool of the printer stuff. And so has to be some sort of rules around that, so that it's not just open. Some of it's safety, some of it's you need to know how to use certain pieces of software so that you can use the 3D printer, and some of it is materials cost.
Okay, but there are beginning to be some classes with him, so he
Yes.
uses it then, but outside of that is locked up.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right now, that's the thing, and that was kind of a conscious decision not to just buy a whole lot of really cool equipment that then nobody knew how to use and just sat there, which happens with a lot of maker spaces that I had seen. And so we wanted to see sort of what people wanted to do and kind of build around that so that we would be providing equipment. So we don't have like a laser cutter, we don't have a router, a programmable routing machine, we don't have an embroidery machine. You know, right now we've got sewing machines, kind of arts and crafts, 3D printer, and like laptops and things for programming and teaching programming software. That's kind of where we're at right now. We've got a subscription, what's that called? It's not Bumble.
Creative Bug.
Creative Bug. I knew it was some sort of insect. I think Bumblebee is a Bumble Tree or something is another kid's book.
Yeah.
But Creative Bug is like a crafting portal where you can watch crafting videos and learn how to knit, learn how to crochet. And we were thinking that that would help not only people at home, but like we could have open make times and just have it on the screen there. People can come in and knit along with a project or do things like that. So we're hoping to sort of expand the use of that as well.
Okay, there's no other questions, so go on to the D2. City of Menlo Park fiscal year 26-27 budget process and timeline. And Nick is gonna give us a introduction and talk about next steps.
Quick introduction. So the commission is interested in learning more about the budget process and also specifically about the library part of the department budget. So I was trying to get a presentation by our internal services manager for this month, but we're not quite ready. And that's because there are a few more things that are coming up here. Let's see if I can make that bigger on the screen. I made it so big that I went off the screen. There we go. This kind of sets up the budget schedule. So there's that priority setting workshop. And as I said earlier, there's like a few things that kind of come into making the budget. It's not just the department requests and whatever the finance department says is left from the budget. So the council sets their priorities, then they have some budget principles that they go over every year. This year we have a cost of services study that's out right now, and I think is coming in late March or early April. Cost of services is where they do a study and they kind of benchmark your costs for doing a affordable housing unit permit, or how much it costs for gymnastics classes, or how much you charge for room rentals, all of these things, and kind of benchmarking that to see if what our costs look like, what percentages of what it costs to do certain things are being recovered, and whether that's in alignment with what the city council has set for the kind of percentage of recovery, because there are some things that you would expect as a city to recover a lot of fees for. Development fees, for instance, like the cost of processing all those development things, you kind of expect to get all that back with the fees. But other things like library or recreation services, you aren't necessarily trying to get all your money back for what it costs to process a book and put it on the shelf. There's value in it that goes beyond the money that you're getting back for it. But it's good to know what that costs, because then you can make good decisions about this, that, or the other, if it comes down to having to make a choice about what you're going to do or not do. So that's coming in. And then we do annually do changes to our master fee schedule. So then that same week, as all that's happening in the middle of April, is when the departments will start having their meetings with the city manager and the finance to sort of take a look at the budget. The portal opens in May. The budget workshop is late May, early June. And then there's a public hearing in June, and then the budget is adopted at the end of June for the next fiscal year. So I have committed to you guys to try to pull some of the library stuff out a little bit better for you to look at. It will come with plenty of caveats about this doesn't show it all, and it's hard to compare. It is difficult to compare the current library budget in the combined departments budget with the library's budget when it was a separate department, because a lot of these things that are now overhead or administrative costs are spread across the department, and they're not just for the library. So, but hopefully you'll get an idea of what we're spending. It's pretty flat. We're not asking, I'm not planning on asking for a lot more or less. Nobody's asked me to cut anything, which is good. But also there's going to be a new department director, so this budget cycle is kind of more status quo and a little less exciting probably it would normally be.
And what's the timing for the new budget, the new library community services director with there?
Oh, when that person's supposed to be
Or
hired.
when will they be deciding it or announcing it, et cetera?
There's panel interviews this week, I can tell you that much. But when they'll make a decision, I don't know. I think they would probably like to make a decision sometime in March. Would be my guess, if they're this far along in the process. Usually there's application screening, initial interview, panel interview with the city manager and the assistant city manager before a final decision is made. How long that all takes to play out, I could not say exactly.
Okay.
Sorry, stop.
But in the meantime, you're the one in charge of doing.
In the
the
meantime, it's us, it's really the team. We are lucky to have Ronnie Singh as our internal services manager. She was an interim finance and budget manager and worked for the finance department for 2 years, 3 years. And before that, she was a longtime member of the library team.
Mhm.
And has her MLIS degree, so she very well understands libraries, how libraries work. But now she also understands all of that finance stuff too, which just makes her really valuable.
Really great. Any public comment on this before we open it to the commission?
Any comment on item D2? See, no comment.
Any questions, comments from commissioners?
I mean, I'm sure I have questions.
I'm sure you'll have a lot more questions when I actually show you actual numbers.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
probably will help the conversation a lot. Right now, it's just kind of out there.
And so that's our next meeting.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully that we have enough stuff together to do it in March. That's only 3 weeks from now, so how these things timed out.
And you had mentioned at one point that maybe Ronnie Singh would come and speak
Yes,
to us.
yeah, that's what
That
I'm
would be the
hoping
time.
to have her come in March.
And at that time or before, would you have any more feedback on some of these items that we put on this list and who might, or is that gonna wait until after the budget is decided?
Some of those things, well, I mean, I wanna be careful not to get too either excited or depressed about certain items. Until we've gotten further along in the budget process, because some of them I just don't know.
Yeah.
what the timeline would be. There's still a lot of moving pieces right now, both in our LCS budget and in the budget process as a whole. So I haven't sat down and talked to the city manager, assistant city manager about the departments, but yeah, that's still like 2 months away. So some of it, I don't want to show too many of my cards. I want to keep some close to me. And then I'll have to talk to the team internally and think, well, what do we think can get done? Where can we get money from? Could we talk to the friends about certain things? It's kind of complicated, but it always is. It's not
What about
like
the-
unusually complicated this year.
At what point do you have to, is it Public Works or, that is in charge of
Yeah,
HVAC, for example? So is
Public
this part of
Works.
what would go in, as they're working on their budget, does that include what they might need to spend to get the HVAC replaced or?
Yeah, if it's a big piece like that, like a HVAC, they will have to build it into their budget request of the city.
So will you have already talked to them
I
about that?
should know about that, yeah,
Okay.
as part of the budget formation, like what's coming up that's affecting LCS. Like mostly this year, it's been like electrification projects. So lots, and we did a big roof project this year, but we've done electrification at a couple of other places in LCS, other facilities. So that's been most of what Public Works has been functioning on, that and there's been a lot of work at Bayfront Park. Channel stuff, but now they're starting to work on the entrance, improve the entrance way out there.
I guess that brings up a question or a thought in my head about, because we are a combined department and the budget for the department, contains, or, you're considering all kinds of different things, besides the library. Is there a similarity between some of the things that we're confronting in the library, like the HVAC or whatever, to the competing, or not competing, but just corollary needs in other parts of LCS?
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
there's some,
Like what,
There's-
we're saying we're ringing the bell for HVAC and some other stuff for facilities needs. What are the other things that LCS is considering allocating funds to, or asking for Public Works help? Or city help to fund, just so you know, what's that?
aquatics mainly
Uh-huh.
is taking up a lot of light and heat. But that is fairly robustly budgeted. It's just there's some uncertainty around that because there are some decisions that the council needs to make about how to do some of the programming. And that might, depending on what the council decides at the end of March, the study session, that might take more money, but that would be more staff and sort of contract services budget, not really facilities budget. Though there are some pretty significant facility budget needs for the Burgess campus because it's just getting older. Burgess Pool here on campus, it's getting older.
Okay.
That's the one that leaves immediately to mind for me. There aren't a lot of other kind of ones where I'm like, oh, we need to electrify the kitchen here in the rec center. But that's not like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So there aren't a ton, really. Internally. Wrong, intentionally, right now, I guess. That can change, but right now,
Yeah.
nothing, so I should touch wood, I don't want anything to blow up or get clogged or.
And that would be for, I guess I was asking, as an example, facilities or physical needs. But for staffing needs and things like that, are there other parts of the department that are looking, you feel have prioritized staffing needs?
I've got some uncertainty, it's mostly aquatics and where the city council is going to go on that, and then I would need staff. If I'm directed to do certain things, I'll need staff to do them there, but that's not a a current need that I need to ask for staff right now. Childcare teams are getting a little bit, childcare is getting a little more full here on the Burgess campus, which is good. But at a certain point, there are ratios of teachers to children that you have to have for childcare programs. We haven't hit those yet. I've always used more people to do more programs. But it's how to show, how to demonstrate that the need is real and compelling compared to all the other requests. I
Right.
think in the budget, if I'm remembering correctly from the budget cycle last year, the only staff requests that went through were 3 in the police department. There were like 2 traffic enforcement officers and 1 records officer. So they weren't even frontline serving staff. They were just saying they weren't sworn. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. They weren't sworn peace officers. But those, and I can't actually remember whether those 3 requests were approved or not. Sometimes these things like the 5-year budget forecast and the mid-year requests factor into the council's decision to, and the city manager's decision to whether you put things forward or not. If they're looking at the 5-year forecast and seeing it going down like that, they're probably not going to say, hey, now's the time to ask for a couple of librarians to run, programs. But the way I think of building an argument for, say, more staff would be to sort of demonstrate the need over time and make that argument. And you can demonstrate that need in lots of different ways. You can show how pilot programs, for instance, are really successful. You could show results from surveys and feedback forms saying we want this and that from the public. It could be studies that the library commission or someone else is doing that say, hey, this is a new need. It could be environmental factors, like there's suddenly a spike in school registrations, or there's 500 more housing units being built across the street, or things like that, which is coming, and it's just not it's not tomorrow, but it's certainly coming.
Right. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Good, sure. Sorry, we went deep there on an info.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else anybody wants to ask about the budget process timeline? Then we'll move to the D3 tentative agenda calendar. Compliments, Nick, I really appreciate the green bolt to remind us of the annually.
This is all management analyst Ashley Dixon, who I said, just slap that extra thing on there, Ashley, and we'll go with it. And she said, no, we're going to integrate it. And now she's decided to do that for the Parks and Rec Commission as well.
It's
So
so
now.
much, but having to refer back and forth, this is way better, so thank you. The only other comment that I have on is in January and in March, we have updates on Library Commission work plan item number 5, which is the budget. And I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be helpful to have a parenthetical there.
Work plan item number 5 is not the budget, was the like makerspace and BHCC programming.
I just looked up because I wasn't sure. I said, what is number 5? And I pulled up.
Because we talked about it in January. And then
Yes,
we were supposed to get back to it, and we didn't get back to it this month.
okay, so I'm looking at the draft work plan that was approved September 9, 2025. Number 5 says annually review library division budget in January, focusing on any potential impacts of library services. Now, maybe it was revised after that, because I'm looking at the August packet.
I'll sort that out.
Okay, I think it'd be helpful to clarify
Yes.
what exactly that.
Didn't we get the budget struck off our work plan.
Yes.
Mhm.
So there's a new number 5.
Right, yeah, the city council actually removed
They
that.
removed that.
Yeah, so that's why I thought that number 5 was, the programming, and services at, BHCC.
It's just confusing because, well, there were only 5 things on the work plan. And they took off that one.
Maybe it's 4.
Yeah.
So,
And maybe that's on me, because
Anyway,
I
just
thought it was, I'll have to go back to check.
okay,
I was thinking that the item that we reviewed in January was the Bellhaven programming where we did a little talk about that, and I was gonna bring
that
that
may be,
update to that.
I just went to the work plan and I didn't go to the one that the. You know, when we ever, if we got the one that the city council,
I think we did, it was probably.
is it probably at the
October.
September, October
Yeah.
meeting?
Anyway,
In any
this is
event,
what we got coming up in March.
let's just get it clarified what we're gonna be talking about.
Yeah, I'm, we're.
And if not-
On, but budget is going to come either in, or let me be more specific, some information on the library. Budget portion of the department budget is coming in March or April. And I will probably talk to, the chair and vice chair and like. Sound out a little bit like what would be the things that you would most want to see. In that presentation, because, you know, I could drown you in numbers, and I don't think that's gonna be very useful, so are you looking at trends, like what's it look like over the past few years, or things like that? Are you particularly interested in staffing or materials? I mean, we'll have all of that, it's all pretty clear. Cool, but you let me know kind of where you wanna go with
We
that.
can talk about it.
Right.
We can talk about in one of our agenda plans, that would be great.
I have a question, I guess regarding the agenda, I mean, it's a little bit, it's related, but it's not specific to everything, there is a library and community services department strategic plan that
Yes.
expires this year. Like the
Yes,
2024 through 26.
that's correct.
And, cause when I first joined the commission, I'm like, oh, there's a strategic plan, so I looked at it. But there actually isn't anything library specific in it. It's all it's very general strategy for everyone, in the department, and so I'm just wondering. 2 things, one, when do you, as a department, start doing the 27 to 29?
We should have started already. but
3-year
okay.
thing. And then when that happens, can we, as a commission, have input
Oh,
on
absolutely.
library,
Absolutely.
initiatives or strategy goals or whatever it is that, however it's framed? Because it seems, I mean, these directives, they're excellent customer service. There's the Bellhaven Community Campus Project, responsiveness to community needs, efficiency, effectiveness, staff development, public engagement, people-focused programs, emergency resilience and relief. Those are the 8 strategic directions, and I think they're good strategic directions. It's just that there's nothing really specifically for the library, and it's an opportunity now, I think, to kind of focus in on real needs and be more thoughtful and intentional.
Sure, I think hopefully what you would have these sort of broader strategic directions, and then you would fill in more details as you kind of drill down into each one, like, well. What does the excellent customer service mean? Well, we are currently doing a secret shopper program. Where a firm comes and calls and visits all of our sites once a month and then gives us a report. So we're gonna report that back to the staff and report it out to you guys and say, hey, here's how it's been going after 6 or 8 months. So that sort of level of detail should be in the strategic plan going forward, and we do need to tighten up some of the things, like we're not building the Bellhaven Community Campus anymore, we have built. We're running Bellhaven Community Campus, but yeah, I think absolutely, both commissions should have a chance to review and also offer input. They're important stakeholders in that strategic planning thing, and I think when Brian was chair, we talked about agendizing that, and I think it may be in the parking lot down there
Lovely.
somewhere. There it is, discussion, operations and strategic planning under unscheduled future. So,
Okay.
so you were on topic, Commissioner, even though
Okay.
it didn't seem like you were on. So yes, I guess the short answer is, we should have started already, and yes, you guys will be involved, in that process. We have, an all hands coming up at the end of March. And we're doing several things that have to do with our, on the rec side, our CAPRA accreditation process. But when we split the rec side off, maybe we'll split the library side off and work a little on some strategic plan work for them.
Yeah, I would think there'd be library specific things, just like you mentioned.
There are.
But that should be included.
There are,
In
yeah.
a 3-year plan like that.
Yep.
Great.
And while you were talking, I did circle back and look at the packet in October, which has the revised work plan as edited by the city council. And number 5 is about Bellhaven. Updating about Bellhaven Community History Project,
Yes,
makerspace, and other policies. So to me, that means that we need to add a bullet point
for the
budget.
budget. And
Update, follow up.
that's sort of floating in the March, April, but I can add it.
But even if it's not gonna be fully addressed in March, given the timeline of the budget process, it would be good to at least have a little update, and hopefully before then, the chair and vice chair will give you some more input on how that can be, what we're particularly interested in.
Yeah, and it would be good to have it on the 16th because the 21st is that meeting with the council.
Mhm.
So we can really have a better
Well,
understanding.
Endeavor to make it.
All right.
Right. Right, are there any individual commissioner reports on any items of interest to the entire commission? Anything about friends?
Yeah, I could give as liaison to the Friends. I caught up with Steve Haas, who is the president of the Friends group, and just to get an update on what might be going on with the Friends. And I don't think there's anything new to report other than they are they do have a very robust cash position. And that they're very they kind of are waiting to hear what staff needs are, and to be able to fund those. And I had thought that I had not attended the January Friends meeting, but in fact, I was there. I was there, and it was Steve who was not there. I'm not sure, you were there, as was Rose, I believe. But in any event, he kind of filled me in and reminded me that they had discussions about having a goal this year for the Friends to learn more about the Bellhaven Library needs, because they don't really have a good idea of what the community wants to see and how they could fill those needs with their group services with the Friends, and bringing their materials down there, or having some understanding really of how to stock what it is that they'd like to have. And so that's sort of an outstanding item of discussion that they are thinking about. And then let's see what else. Myself, since my memory isn't so swell apparently. Yes, he shared that he did not know that Sean was leaving officially. So he was surprised, although he suspected as much, I guess, because they're in the library and saw signs on the door and stuff like that. but he is also, did not know about the gatehouse, and was, the gatehouse study session that's upcoming. And that I guess there was talk of perhaps either the Friends or, the Menlo, the historic, is it the historic?
Historic Association.
Yeah,
Historic-
Historic Association.
Using the gatehouse, they hadn't as a group discussed that. And, let's see. Other than that, I mean, I just kind of asked him, is there anything else you would like me to share, or, he didn't really have anything else. Right now, his biggest concern really is that their treasurer and the Amazon sales rep person, or not rep, but the person who's handling the Amazon sales, which is unbelievably successful for the Friends, would not be available to continue doing that, and that would be a problem for them. There would be a replacement, so they would like to have more awareness of what they do, the Friends, so that they could get more volunteers and more support from the community to be engaged and involved in some of the Friends activities, so that they can continue operating at the level that they've been doing for a while now.
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be my update for the Friends. Yes.
I have a question. Can you put anyone who is looking into Belhaven stuff in touch with the subcommittee?
Oh, yes, that was the other thing.
Oh, okay,
I was
great.
I had said we have an actual subcommittee, the same way we've had the ad hoc subcommittee for the Library of the Future, and that I would pass along this information, so, yeah.
Oh, great, okay.
Thank you for asking that. So, so Steve Haas would love to, be in contact.
Great.
They meet quarterly,
Okay,
so it's not a every month thing.
yeah.
But I could give you his cell phone number and contact information.
Great, that would be
can,
pretty wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah, that is unfortunately a bit of a perennial problem for the Friends, is that they are completely volunteer, tend to be more retired folks than not. And so they need to sort of make sure that they are recruiting and training people up to do some of those roles, because people move out of that area, people have life changes and things like that. But they've had a really consistent core group now for a good 5-10 years, so that it may be that starting to get to the end of that cycle. Generation.
So I'm the representative to the Menlo Park Library Foundation, which is going through something similar. Right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for a study session, waiting for more direction on capital needs and a fundraising goal. So during that waiting process, the foundation is updating its bylaws and planning to do some recruiting for new members, because some people have rolled off, and it's a pretty small group now, and a lot of them have been doing it for a long time. Which brings to mind that I noticed that 2 people on our commission their term is ending, so I assume both of you are going to be reapplying to be reappointed. And that in April is when the new commission members are appointed. And it's been encouraging to see in past that a number of people, quite a good response to commission openings. And it occurred to me that for both the foundation and maybe for the Friends, looking at the people who are applying for library related positions, or even on some of the other commissions, would be a good place to start looking. But also they advertise it in the newsletters and in the local newspapers like in Menlo and the Almanac. And I think that's in part why they get such a good response. So I think that it would be a great idea for both the foundation and the Friends to use those. Like maybe as a follow-on after the commission thing gets filled, then reach out to people and put a pitch in the local papers, et cetera. So something for the Friends to think about. I know we're talking about it at the foundation board meetings.
I wonder if the city, when they do those, open advertisements, I guess, for the open commission, if they're willing to say they're, if you can't commit to this, maybe you'd be interested in doing, and also add on the affinity groups. The foundation and the Friends is, if everybody's amenable to that, if the foundation isn't, the Friends are, would the city be?
Probably not, because I think they wanna keep the
Separate.
city
Separation.
and the five oh one C
Yeah.
three
And also,
separate.
yeah, and they
But-
can't give us the emails. Because
Right.
that's private.
Well, I mean. Adding it on as like a click on, like you could do this, and this is also something that is.
But I think we can, but we, LCS has some levers we can pull. I mean, our newsletter has more than 20,000 subscribers and it gets a lot of.
Yeah.
Ashley has done a nice little machine to see what the click-through rate is on various different articles, so it's
Yeah, I think-
interesting to see
yeah,
the
Yeah,
engagement
exactly.
there.
is
But
how they-
even, there are advertising that in the newspaper or, advertising in, buying some web ads is probably not also too expensive for something like this, and you might catch some people who are also,
Anyway, something for those two groups to
things
think
like that,
about.
yeah,
yeah.
something to think about.
And I think the deadline, what is it? It's also March something for the, you guys already know that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the clerk's office does reach out and
Perfect.
Right.
Just wanna make sure.
with everybody.
You guys
Friendly nudge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything to report out? All right, I think it's time to adjourn. It is 7:43. Boom.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna put